Part 30, Second Resurrection, 15th of the 9th, 71C. There are many versions of the second resurrection recorded in the Bible. In my book, I have presented two versions. I will discuss the analysis on page 138 and 139 of the Great Bible Fiasco. Mount Nebo, 5 to 6 p.m., 15th of the 7th, 71C. Part 2, Resurrection, Elisha, 5:30 p.m., 15th of the 7th, 71C. Genesis 40:20. And on the third day, which was Pharaoh's birthday, he made a feast for all his servants, and he lifted up the head of the chief of the cupbearers and the head of the chief of the bakers among his servants. 15th of the 7th, 71C. Andrew was beheaded at 10 a.m. Simon was beheaded at 5 p.m. Genesis 40:22. But the chief of the bakers he hanged, just as Joseph had interpreted to them. Simon was crucified. Deuteronomy 31:14. And Jehovah will do to them even as he did to Sihon and Og, the kings of the Amorites, and to their land when he destroyed them. Vespasian will destroy the Jews in the same way that he did to Simon and Andrew. This was 15th of the 7th, 71C, 6 p.m. 2 Kings 4:32. And when Elisha went into the house, there was the dead boy laid out on his bed. Simon was the dead boy. 2 Kings 4:33. And he went in and shut the door behind the two of them, and he prayed to Jehovah. Titus shut the door. 2 Kings 4:34. Then he got up and lay on the child, and he put his mouth on his mouth, and his eyes on his eyes, and his palms on his palms, and he stretched himself over him, and the flesh of the child became warm. 2 Kings 4:35. And he got down and walked about in the house once to and fro, and he got up and stretched himself over him, and the boy sneezed 7 times. Then the boy opened his eyes. Simon opened his eyes. This showed he was alive. 2 Kings 4:36. And he called Gehazi and said, "Call that Shunammite." So he called her, and when she came to him, he said, "Take up your son." Titus called to Mary, who was Simon's mother. 2 Kings 4:37. And she came and fell at his feet and bowed herself to the ground. And she took up her son and went out. The verses refer to Titus's resurrection by act. Jesus said, Hosea 12:3, in the very womb he supplanted his brother. Titus took the place of Simon in the grave. Job 18:9, a spring grips him by the heel, a trap snaps shut and he is caught. Simon's legs were dismembered. Genesis 27:36, your brother came by fraud and took your blessing. Titus performed a resurrection by fraud. Genesis 27:36, then he has supplanted me twice. First he took my birthright, and look, now he has taken my blessing. Titus inherited the birthright of Simon. Genesis 25:26, then his brother was born, with his hand grasping Esau's heel. Titus was resurrected. He grasped the hands and legs of Simon. 2 Kings 13:21, the man had no sooner touched the bones of Elisha than he came to life and stood on his feet. It was Titus who stood on his feet. He took away the head, hands, and legs of Simon. 2 Kings 9:35, but when they went to bury her, they found no more of her than her skull and her feet and the palms of her hands. The verse stated that Simon's head, feet, and hands were taken away. 2 Kings 2:1, and when Jehovah was about to take up Elijah by a whirlwind into heaven, Elijah went with Elisha from Gilgal. Titus took Simon's head to Mount Hor. 2 Samuel 4:8, and they brought the head of Ishbosheth to David in Hebron, And they said to the king, here is the head of Ishbosheth, the son of Saul, your enemy who sought your life. This was Simon, the son of John. It was Simon's head. 1 Samuel 17:52. And David took the head of the Philistine and brought it to Jerusalem, but he put his armor in his tent. 5 p.m. The verse referred to Titus taking Simon's head to Mount Hor at the tent. Judges 15:15. And he found a fresh jawbone of an ass, and he stretched out his hand and took it, and struck 1,000 men with it. Simon's head was referred to as a jawbone of an ass. Judges 16:22. But the hair on his head began to grow back after it had been shaved off. 5:30 p.m. The verse referred to Titus's hair. This was the resurrection. Titus had the power to be the Messiah. 1 Samuel 18:6. But when the men came home, as David returned from striking the Philistines, the women came out of all the towns of Israel, singing and dancing to meet Saul the king, with tambourines and joyful songs and stringed instruments. 5:30 p.m. The women came to see Simon's head. 1 Samuel 18:7. And the women sang to one another as they played, and they said, Saul has struck down his thousands, but David 10,000. 5:30 p.m. Titus gained power. This was Titus' second coming. The people were awaiting his arrival at the Forum Romanum. Titus brought Simon's head. 1 Samuel 23:17. You are the one who is to reign over Israel, and I shall be second to you. 5:30 p.m. Titus would reign as Jesus and Domitian would be the next Jesus. 1 Samuel 31:9 and 1 Chronicles 10:9. And they cut off his head and stripped off his armor, and they sent them all around throughout the land of the Philistines in order to announce the good news in the houses of the idols and to the people. 5:30 p.m. The verse referred to Simon's head being cut off and displayed to the Romans and Jews in Rome. This was the good news. This was the gospel. 1 Chronicles 10:10. And they put his armor in the house of their gods, and they fastened his head to the house of Dagon. They hung Simon's head in the temple of Dagon. Genesis 40:13. Within 3 more days, Pharaoh will lift up your head and restore you to your office. And you will put Pharaoh's cup into his hand according to your former custom when you were his cupbearer. Simon's head was cut off and lifted up.